Bam, 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 bam.
Okay, let's see. So welcome to another session of the Worldwide Global Education Conference. My name is Kathy Johnson. I'm your volunteer moderator, and Janet Sedgley is with me also. And we have a few housekeeping slides to go through before I introduce our speakers. So just to remind you that the hashtag, the Twitter hashtag for the conference is hashtag GlobalEd13. You'll be getting when you close out of this session, you'll get a feedback form if you could fill that out. And if you represent a nonprofit school, please sign up here. And there's a URL for a discussion forum after the conference. So we want to thank our sponsors and supporters. So if you ever have a chance to run into any of the people who work at these companies, be sure to thank them for the conference putting on. It's a big thing to manage all this. So hopefully you're familiar with this. I've given you whiteboard permission, so if you can grab the little star and just let us know where you are. And if you want to type in the chat too, that would be good. Okay, there's one. Is that the Montana, Taiwan? Okay, Marcy cannot put hers in. Massachusetts. Vermont. Oh, you don't have permission? I thought I gave everybody. You should have permission. Huh. Oh, I'm not sure what happened. Can you see it now? Okay. Is this... Okay, did everybody get a chance? Oh, here's one. And where's this? So they got south. What is that? Chile, Colombia, Nigeria. Okay. Peru, Trinidad and Tobago. I love it. I love it. Okay, I think we'll move forward. You're figuring it out, Lauren. Did you get it? So I'm pleased to introduce Lainey Liberty, and oh, where is the other person? I'm sorry. Lainey, help me. I don't have the slide with your name on it.
It's Mira Siegel.
Okay, thank you. Take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for your help with moderating that. We're really excited to be here tonight with you at the Global Education Conference. I've sat in on many of the sessions today and yesterday, and I'm so inspired by the wealth of creativity and ideas to help promote a global state of learning. My name is Lainey.
And I'm Miro. Thank you for joining us. Our session is called Travel as an Alternative Form of Education, Forming Communities and Intentional Learning. We are aware most of you are educators working directly with students. We are coming to you from a different perspective in hopes that we may inspire you in your classrooms across the globe. My mom and I will speak for about 30 minutes, then open up the session for Q&A, as our hope is that we can inspire you in some way. We will share links to our Global Education Project at the end of this presentation and invite your comments and feedback. Also, if you happen to be watching this as a recorded version, feel free to contact us via our site if you have questions.
We are not educators, but we do have experience with global education, as we've been inspired to produce an international temporary learning community project here in Cusco, Peru, where we currently live. Today we are going to share with you some of our discoveries from hosting this learning event in hopes that somehow you can translate some of our findings into your classrooms.
Since this conference is focusing on global education and all that surrounds it, we felt sharing a real-life instance of global education would be beneficial to you as educators. As most of the talks we've listened to so far are seeking a way to bridge the gap between geographical limitations between classrooms in order to provide a global conversation. But for us, we are living in global education through complete immersion.
Before we get into our presentation, we wanted to share a little bit about us first. We are a mother and a son who have sought out a different way of living our lives. We are world schoolers. Over the past 4.5 years, my son and I have been traveling through Central America and South America and have made some brilliant discoveries in regards to our commitment to learning. We have stumbled upon a lifestyle in which we discovered we are learning effortlessly, completely engaged in our lives, and have a lot of fun doing so.
My mom and I left the U.S. in July of 2009. I was 10 when we left, and we thought we were leaving for 1 year of traveling. As we start on our 5th year on the road, we discover so much about the power of travel as it relates to learning.
When we left the States, I had no idea we'd still be traveling today. Somehow, I believed that traveling for 1 year would be a sufficient education for my son, so I didn't really think much about curriculum to supplement his learning, as I intuitively knew he'd get a lot out of the travel experience. Miro went to a public school up until the 4th grade. I've always been a single parent. I ran my own branding agency for many years and had never even considered anything outside of the conventional education path for my son. But now we've been on the road for over 4.5 years, and many things about learning as a global citizen have unfolded for us. Our learning style is labeled as unschooling or natural learning, but that will not be the subject of today's talk. However, it's important to note that through our global learning experience that has transported us here.
When we got to Peru, we were stunned with how much we were learning. We were learning about cultural practices, history, archaeology, agriculture, music, art, language, mysticism, politics, economics, and so much more. But most of all, we were connecting those lessons to our own lives, our own experiences, as a way to expand our relationship to the world. That is the ultimate purpose of global education or global citizen-centric thinking.
We realized the majority of besides the new content that we are putting into our knowledge base, we are exercising our critical thinking skills, practicing empathy, listening, and exploring and connecting with people in a way we had never done so before in our lives. We were learning through full immersion and we were doing so effortlessly.
The first time my mom and I visited the Sacred Valley here in Peru, I looked at her and said, we should bring a group of unschoolers here to learn the way we were learning. And so our vision for Project World School Peru was born.
We realize that the majority of you here are formal educators, and our approach to learning is contrary to most of your professional approaches. But we hope through our exploration that you can find some takeaway value. Let's face it, we're all committed to providing optimal learning experiences as the bottom line, as we all agree there are tremendous benefits to adapting a global learning perspective, or we wouldn't be here. As we said, we're not experts in anything other than our own experiences, and what we're sharing with you are all our personal discoveries in regards to our commitment to learning. I've been writing about natural learning on our blog and have shared with and inspired many, many, many families along the way. In many respects, we've become a vocal advocate for world schooling, and in many respects, we were all concerned about the same thing, connecting globally through education. Today, I'm really addressing learning versus teaching, so we are coming at it from the other end. Since I'm not a formal educator, I look at my role as a facilitator with the learning process. We apply that to our form of world schooling, which is the foundation of our project.
Here are the three principles of world schooling, adapted from a natural learning or the unschooling perspective. 1. Learning happens naturally. A learner absorbs, learns without effort when supported and encouraged. Interests lead the initial pursuit, but many new avenues can flow from there. 2. The world teaches, based on stimulus and environmental inspiration.
The world becomes a classroom and can't help but to teach us. To the degree a person is engaged in the world around them, they are matched with equal learning opportunities.
3. Community is vital to learning. Community provides the support needed to profound learning through feedback loops, expansion of ideas, and safe investigation. What makes travel so different than a formal education setting where learning is passive, travel immersion is participatory by nature. When a group of 2 or more are having the same experience, it invites the opportunity to process the experiences through conversation, which reinforces a deeper learning. Some formal education removes the experiential element from the learning process, and travel adds it back.
With those 3 elements in mind, we designed an interactive learning experience that would create community.
Based on these aspects of learning, our desire was to create a project here in Peru, where people from other countries can learn from the endless inspiration we felt here. Here's what we came up with.
We co-created a temporary learning community in Peru's Sacred Valley, inviting dynamic homeschoolers from around the world to participate. Our pilot program only involved around 10 people for just under 5 weeks. For the next retreat, we hope to build a temporary learning community for at least 30 participants for 2014.
Remember we said the world teaches? We utilized the region's inherent offerings, investigating history, archaeology, permaculture, and the arts to start the conversation. Then from there, we encouraged our individual interests to direct deeper investigation.
My role was that as a facilitator versus a teacher. I'm going to share with you what that means a little later on in this presentation. But in essence, as a facilitator, I encourage the participants to reflect on our similarities and diversities and develop new connections to each other, thus forming a stronger community. Through culture, mysticism, science, traditions, we discovered our individual and collective relationship to humanity. This is the philosophy in which the learning community was created and agreed upon among all participants.
We hold the vision sacred to co-create a learning community through the participation of all attendees of every age, nationality, role, and walk of life during this retreat. The main philosophy is to engage a collective learning experience, allowing inspiration to flow through unlimited natural learning channels. The environment and community encourages new grounds to explore, stretching our comfort zones and exploring new interests. We support and are supported with a commitment to dignity and respect. In the broader picture, we are excited to witness uncharted dynamic learning experiences that will help to expand our individual and group identities within a cultural context, serving to empower our own creative human spirit. The goal is to engage with each participant through multidisciplinary reflection, dialogue, vision building, experimentation, and exploration.
Probably one of the main differences between this learning community experience and a traditional classroom setting is that all of the students or learners were there voluntarily based on their desire to participate. This assured the complete buy-in from the get-go, an obstacle we did not have to overcome. I'm sure there are many creative educators out there that can achieve this in a formal setting, however. Next, we define what a temporary learning community is.
A learning community is a group of people who share common emotions, values, or beliefs, who are actively engaged in learning together from each other and by habituation. Such communities have become the template for a cohort-based interdisciplinary approach to a higher education. This may be based on an advanced kind of educational or pedagogical design. Community psychologists such as Macmillan and Chavez state that there are 4 key factors that define a sense of community. 1, membership. 2, influence. 3, fulfillment of individual needs. And 4, shared events and emotional connection. So the participants of learning community must feel some sense of loyalty and belonging to the group, membership, that drive the desire to keep working and helping others. Also, the things that the participants do must affect what happens in the community. That means an active and not just a reactive performance, influence. Besides the learning community must give the chance to the participants to meet particular needs, fulfillment, by expressing personal opinions, asking for help or specific information, and share stories of events with particular issues including emotional connections and emotional experiences.
So in order to create a learning community, we had to consider the aspects that had to be in place in order to nurture natural learning. For me, this was an investigation since, again, I'm not a formal educator. So here's what we discovered. Number 1, learning happens based on needs determined through personal goals and personal accountability. Number 2, learning is developmentally appropriate to the individual. Number 3, learning becomes a memory that is charged through the emotional experience. Number 4, learning is affected by the learner's emotional intelligence. Number 5, learning is supported by the learner's support systems, for example, parents, family, community, past, present, and future. Number 6, learners excel individually to different types of learning styles, tactile, experiential, passive, active, etc. Number 7, learning is powered through personal motivation and personal empowerment. Number 8, interest drives learning. And number 9, environment inspires learning.
Next, Next, we wanted to share with you some of the factors we noticed that contributed to the project's success. Hopefully, as educators, you'll find a way to adapt these to your classrooms. 1, buy-in/commitment. 2, full cultural immersion. 3, contextual learning. And 4, exploring point of views. 5, problem definition. 6, creative problem solving. 7, collaboration. 8, freedom. 9, ownership. And 10, fun. All of this together equals global learning.
Next, we explored who the stakeholders are for this project. We identified 4 main stakeholders, all whom had needs which needed to be managed. The first were the students or the learners. Our first consideration were meeting the needs of the learners. Because there was complete buy-in before the retreat, they were there by choice, even in some cases had to raise money to be there. We do not need to overcome the participation aspects, but we did work together with each participant to define their expectations before the retreat started. In addition, we held each learner responsible for leading a session or two based on their own individual interests.
2, parents. Parents also had a set of expectations which we had to meet. Most of those needs evolved around the safety of their own children, which is understandable. 3, locals. We were guests in a host country. The key was respect, empathy, and compassion. We interacted with local musicians, farmers, shamans, and mystics, families, artisans, and drivers and cooks. Everyone presented a learning opportunity. Everyone had a value to offer.
And the last stakeholders are facilitators. The team involved in facilitating the retreat, which were not teachers, were facilitators. Rather, they were there to share their knowledge. We did have those who were experts in their field to share their knowledge, like yoga instructors, hiking guides, improv teachers, etc. As a team, however, we all agreed to take on the attitude that we were sharing some sort of skill set with the group rather than teaching, which shifted the energy to a more equal-like feeling or community feeling. We want to talk about the facilitators for the moment. It's clearly a different role than that of a teacher. And one of the things that I discovered was a facilitator role includes asking questions that promote out-of-the-box thinking, maintaining community vibe, offering support, taking cues from the learners to suggest secondary interests, providing suggestions for resources and other avenues of exploration, offering support and encouragement, and facilitating problem solving among members, but not solving the problems for them. We are conscious of each of these stakeholders' needs are met at all times. Oops.
Yeah.
This is how we structured the retreat. We broke down the retreat each week by theme. Unique to Peru's Sacred Valley, we were able to engage the local community for most of the activities.
Week 1, ethnobotany, sacred plants / plant medicine, permaculture and agriculture, and sustainability. Week 2, music, cooking, artisan workshops such as weaving, ceramics, jewelry, and history. Week 3 is humanity and consciousness, archaeology and anthropology, UFOs/aliens, and Andean mysticism. Week 4 was a bit more outdoorsy. It's jungle and nature, trekking, and the Machu Picchu hike, of course.
We broke down the days into 3 sessions. And first we had morning sessions, which were they weren't mandatory. If people wanted to get up early, we would have a yoga session or a group meditation, morning hikes, and sometimes short discussion groups. And sometimes participants led morning sessions before breakfast. Then after breakfast, we had a day session based on the theme of the week. And that started after breakfast. We would do either a day hike or a visit to ruins, or we would have a guest speaker come in and do a workshop. The day sessions usually lasted between 5 or 6 hours, and then after that we had some rest time. Then we had dinner, and after dinner we all came together sort of as compression for that day. We discussed business and made announcements. And then we had time, the evening sessions were breakout sessions, and it depended on who signed up for what session. We offered improv, like music jam sessions, brainstorming sessions. We showed documentaries. We did night meditations. We sat around the bonfire. And sometimes we had discussion groups. And at least 2 or 3 times a week, we had participant-led sessions.
So we just shared the basic content that we explored during the retreat. But we noticed there were incredible interpersonal skills being exercised too, like self-reliance, socializing, tolerance and acceptance, practice patience, contributing to group efforts, becoming adaptable, real-world problem solving, humility, empathy, openness, and negotiate group dynamics. Oh, and play.
So that is our version of global education. Our vision for the next retreat is to build a temporary learning community for up to 30 learners at a time. Eventually, we'd love to develop these temporary learning communities throughout the world. But right now, we're standing at the dawn of this vision.
The last thing we want to do is leave you with some images, hopefully to inspire you.
And we'd love to, while we're showing these images, open up the conversation. And if there's any questions, we would love to hear them now. Okay, so the first question was, how were our participants selected? We actually put out a call, and we offered the retreat to anybody who was interested. We focused on the unschooling community because that's what we were most familiar with, and we felt that natural learners already had an aptitude for absorbing new information. However, I see now that homeschoolers and anybody else who would be interested, even a traditional school student might enjoy this if we did this during the summer break. We did interview each participant. We asked a series of questions that talked about what their interests were, what their needs were, what their expectations were, and basically we were prepared beforehand. We didn't have that many applications for the pilot program, so we didn't turn anybody away. But I believe that having an open mind is one of the most important attributes to being a part of the community. So I hope that answers your question. The next question is by, what was the age minimum?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. How many days did you say the session lasts? We have this group of learners for just under 5 weeks. So is that what you're asking, Kathy? I hope that answers your question. The minimum age, the minimum age is 14, and we would take people with no maximum age as long as they are willing to participate in a learning community. Did the two of you create a course outline, or was it created collaboratively with the participants? What we did is we created a rough outline as to what we were going to focus on each week. And then the evening before, we presented what all the options were for that week. We did have to do some pre-organization in terms of who was going to speak, if we had a presenter. We had workshops. We arranged visits to farms. We visited an animal sanctuary. We did a lot of different things, but we kept within the theme of that week. When there were arrangements that needed to be made that were a little less flexible, we presented it to the community. And if people didn't want to do it, we just asked that activity. But for the most part, pretty much everybody was pretty flexible and pretty eager to participate in everything. The thing that varied was the actual dates that we did things within that week. But also, Susanna, I think that gave a sense of empowerment and choice, accountability, and all those things that we were trying to encourage with creating this learning community. So are there any more questions? Wonderful. Did you make arrangements for them, or did they make their own travel? We provided the housing arrangements, actually. We all lived together, and that was part of creating the community. I think for when we do a larger community with 30 or more people, obviously the living arrangements are going to be different. So we'll have to look into that, but we've got till, we're planning July of 2014 for the next one. In terms of travel, all of the local travel was part of something that we arranged, and that's what their fee covered. What they did have to cover on top of fee was their transportation to get to Peru. Okay, were there any more questions? Oh, here's one. I guess I didn't know there was an unschooling community. Ah, yes. Actually, Kathy, there's a pretty large unschooling community in the United States and Australia, and it's growing as an alternative form. Both Muriel and I were a little nervous presenting here since the majority of the participants are teachers. We honor, we respect the work that teachers do. However, our approach is different. We're coming at learning from a whole different perspective, and it's just another alternative. We feel that perhaps there's some give and take here, that maybe this sort of experience could supplement, the summer session for a student that's going to traditional school. So again, I've stated many times as well, I'm not an educator. I'm just a passionate parent who fell into this and has been committed to learning with my child, and this has been our path. Oh, thanks, Lauren. I hope this program is around in 8 years too. Yeah, Lauren, if there's anything I can do to help you in terms of, understanding more about unschooling, I'm certainly not an expert, but there's a ton of resources I can turn you on to. Kathy, the price for the 2-week, we were trying to launch a 2-week after the 5-week, and we priced that at $2,500, which included everything, including the food, including the Machu Picchu trek, including the transportation from Lima to the Sacred Valley. We're going to have to probably reassess for a longer period of time. The 5-week was a little bit higher. Actually, it wasn't much higher, but we did what we could. So
Also, if there's any information you still want to know, it's all on the website.
thanks, Miro. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Janet. Oh my gosh, it's Lisa Marie! Oh my gosh! Hi, Lisa Marie.
Hello.
Are there any other questions for them? If not, I'd like to thank you for an interesting talk. We'll have the recording will be there, I think, tomorrow. And as you exit, you'll be asked to evaluate. So any other comments or questions? Well, that's true. You still have time.
Okay.
They recommend that we give a little space in between so that people get some break since we go from hour to hour.
Of course.
But if there's more conversation or questions, that's totally fine.
Okay. Oh, I'm just seeing Denise's comment. Denise, you must be a teacher because you're talking about inquiry-based learning. You don't bite, thank goodness. Yes, Kathy, we have listened to Sir Ken Robinson. Love him. I spent probably the last 4 years learning about learning, so I've become passionate about all of this. And I write about that a lot on our blog, which is raisingmiro.com. That's our personal blog. Yes, Susanna, we actually presented at the Online Homeschooling Unschooling Conference. So we were really excited to be here at this one, but we do know that the audience is quite different, and we really did want to share and talk more about learning versus homeschooling. Oh, Kathy, thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Denise and Kathy. And Lisa Marie, we miss you too. Great. Okay, Marcella wants to know how Miro gets math education. We've written an article about this, but Miro is very highly spirited when it comes to math. Why don't you talk about it?
I honestly dislike math. And I feel like I know basic math, and I can do math fairly well, but I feel like it would be unnecessary to learn math after a certain point because I am aiming to become a writer. So I feel like it would just be unnecessary, where I could be focusing on things that would help me more.
And frankly, the way that I feel as a parent is higher math really teaches critical thinking skills. And living the lifestyle that we're living, critical thinking skills are happening daily. So there's that opportunity to exercise, develop that part of his brain. If Miro has no interest in higher math, I'm not going to force it upon him. He's focused in his efforts on his creative writing and reading right now, which drive his passions. That actually, is moving a little bit more into the unschooling philosophy, and I know there's a lot of controversy about that. Again, I'm not an expert in anything, but we are simply, pursuing what we feel is the correct path for us, and I hope that answers your question. There's another question from Denise. People worry about what will happen to their child after their child should finish high school. How do you feel about that?
Well, what happens if your child never went to high school?
I would say through our experience of travel, he's bilingual. He has learned so much through traveling. He is starting his own business. He's volunteered. He's quite an intelligent person, and he's 14 years old. Lauren says Miro sounds much older than 14. I frankly don't feel that Miro's going to have a problem finding work. So thank you all so much. Yeah, Miro's 14. Unschooling. Thank you, Kathy, for putting up those links. There's more information on our personal blog at raisingmiro.com. And Project World School Peru originally was called Project Unschool Peru, but we've decided to take the unschool out of it because it's really about learning, and we learn through the world. And I understand that the term unschooling can be off-putting to many people, and we don't want to discriminate. We actually do want to include schooled children in the next retreat. Our next retreat hopefully will be between 4 and 6 weeks, and that we'll do it over a period of time where school is not taking place. So anyway, Kathy, thank you. I assume, Kathy, you are a teacher. Yes, agreed. We all are responsible for leading our own learning. And I hope that that's something that you actually inspire in your classrooms, because it's so important. Miro, here's a question for you. Are you thinking about college?
It's too far in the future to tell. That's really it. I could go, and I don't know. I really don't know.
Denise, where are you from, where it's illegal? Oh, everybody wants to know where you're from. Oh, Taiwan. I know that there are legal issues in Holland, Germany, and Belgium as well. Denise, is homeschooling completely illegal in Taiwan as well? Oh, I see. Yikes. Wow. Well, I wish I could be an advocate for every child to have this experience, but I just don't know what to say. Right, makes sense. Okay, Denise, uh-oh, what is that? Come away, join us. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for sharing your evening or morning with us, and please stay in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.